Hello, darlings, and welcome back to Diva Deep Cuts, where we uncover all the best songs you've never heard by the great divas of today and yesterday. I am Ben, and thank you so much for watching or listening on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. So the day has arrived finally, even though I'm like practically a month late. Today we will be talking about Beyoncé's amazing album, Act 2, Cowboy Carter. I had no idea what to expect for this record. I loved Renaissance. Like, if it's not self-evident, I'm part of the queer community, and I've always loved dance music, especially house. House and trance are like my top two categories of dance music and my own preferences. So I loved Renaissance. It still sounds fresh to me after 2 years. So country is a genre I'm less familiar with, and I had no idea what on earth we would be getting, especially with Texas Hold'em. I avoided listening to 16 Carriages until the album was out, but I did listen to Texas Hold'em a couple of times, which was like Beyonce's take on a line dancing song. And I was like, okay, let's see where we're going. But this album, this album is the best thing Beyonce has ever released. This 3-act project as a whole is going to be her magnum opus, and I don't know where she goes after Act 3 comes out in a few years. But Cowboy Carter, the second act, is so amazing. It's challenging, it's genre hopping, it is unapologetically black and Creole, but it is still, I mean, she said it's not a country album, it's a Beyonce album, but it takes all of those roots of country and folk music that black people were a part of and just melds them all together to be like, it's her saying, we founded this genre. Everyone else needs to remember that. And it's not just that. Like, American Requiem opens with some amazingly powerful lyrics. One of my friends, actually, I think 2 people texted me the week it came out and were like, I listened to American Requiem and I was just like, did she really just say that? They did not specify, but I'm assuming it references the part where she sings, them big ideas are buried here, and the nothing really is. For things to stay the same, they have to change. I think those 2 pieces were what they were referring to. And the fact that it's delivered with such loud, bold, dramatic instrumentation underneath of it too is just very impactful in your face. It's kind of her being like, you cannot look away from this. Like, I'm not going to be subtle. I'm not going to be quiet. Like, I want you to pay attention to what I am saying. And then it shifts into like a 60s psychedelic story referencing vaguely her performance with the Chicks at the 50th annual CMA Awards. That's redundant. Country Music Association Awards. So yeah, so that's where it starts, with a 5.5-minute epic calling out people essentially for being closed-minded and racist, and talking about the state of America, what it means today and where it's at and what she sees from that, and tying in her own experience. So, like, when I listened to this, and I was just like blown away. If I had hair, it would have been blown off the first time I listened to American Requiem. I was like, okay, it's 5.5 minutes. There's still 26 tracks. Like, what are we in for? What ride are we in for? But I love how she scales it back a little bit, and the beautiful, almost like girl group-esque take on the Beatles' Blackbird just kind of is like, okay, we have the harsh reality has been talked about in track 1. So let's reel it back in and actually start the journey with track 2. And this album, it just flows so well. Like, the gentle acoustic sounds of Blackbird, the more dramatic autobiographical 16 Carriages, then into some beautiful songs dedicated to her children. And we start, by the time we get to My Rose, we start like veering away from just like straight up country sounds. But then it kind of reels it back in when she has several members of country music royalty on this record. The first one who appears is Willie Nelson, being sort of like the radio DJ of the loose concept of this album being like a radio show. And then we go into my favorite stretch of the record, which starts with the Willie Nelson Smoke Hour interlude, where we also get to hear clips of classics in the country canon from Black artists before Willie Nelson speaks as the DJ. But then we have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 punch of Texas Hold'em, Bodyguard, Jolene, Daughter, did I skip one, and Spaghetti. Like, it just goes. Texas Hold'em, it's fun. It blew up all over TikTok. It's just like a fun line dancing kind of number that is honestly one of the lightest moments on this record, at least till we get near the end. Bodyguard gets stuck in my head all the time. I desperately hope it's a single. It's holding up really well on streaming. It is so catchy. I think it would be a great like summer single, because you can just imagine like riding down the highway with the windows open on a hot, humid day with that song playing, and Beyoncé rises and falls with the production. It's one of those where it like goes around and then you think it's ending and then it starts up again and does another piece, and it's just like, I think it's ending, but I don't want it to be over. Then we get a cameo from the queen herself, Miss Dolly Parton, who relates Becky with the good hair to Jolene with the auburn hair, before Beyoncé does her own scathing take on Jolene, which unfortunately I did not realize it myself, but one of the verses is more Beyoncé singing from the perspective of her mother, possibly, when she talks about being from Louisiana. And then the other verse being from her own perspective. Sometimes I like to think of it with that interpretation when I hear this take on Jolene. Sometimes I just like to take it all from a singular person's perspective. But it's one that it seems weird at first because the lyrics are different. But then when it opens into that chorus at the end of like the Beyoncé on the lead and this like choir of cowboys in the background, it takes on a life of its own, separate from Dolly Parton's original. It's just stunningly beautiful. And then you're like, okay, I've been going along. I might need a break. Like, Texas Hold'em was fun and I danced a lot. Bodyguard gave me a ride. Jolene was an intense journey. And then instead of stopping or giving something easier, she ratchets it up even more with Daughter, which has very dark, violent imagery, and then an interpolation of the aria O Caro Mio right in the middle with Beyoncé singing opera. And you're just like, what is even happening? She's like singing about beating people up, singing opera, like singing about how she's like her father and will ice people out and destroy them if they cross her. Like, Daughter is beautiful and uncomfortable and intense. And after that, it's like, oh, okay. This has been a ride and a half. So we get a little bit of a break after that with Spaghetti. I don't love this one because I don't think it is for me. Because I don't have a strong taste for hip hop, and that's okay. On a 27 track record of this magnitude, not everything has to be for me, a white man in America, and that's fine. I respect it though, and I do love the spoken word intro by the third member of country royalty, Linda Martell, who speaks about genres being a funny little concept and how they can be confining, before Beyoncé veers off from this country-inspired work that we've gotten so far into Brazilian hip-hop on Spaghetti. And then we're not even halfway through this record. Like, now we've gotten through what I think is the more intense part, and now we have like more breezy time to enjoy without getting bored. Because Alligator Tears is a little bit more relaxed. We have the second Smoke Hour with Willie Nelson, and then Just for Fun, Two Most Wanted, and Levi's Jeans. That's kind of more like the breezy, laid back, driving down the road kind of like things. But they're so well produced and lyrically interesting that it's not the time to get bored. It's not like the second act of the marathon where you're just kind of like tuning everything out and floating along to continue. It's like still very engaging. Miley Cyrus and Post Malone fit better into this record than I could have imagined. I'm actually really glad Two Most Wanted is shaping up to be the second single. I just think it's beautiful, stunning. Their harmonies are out of this world. It's so catchy, has so many good lines. I just walk around my apartment singing it to myself. Like, I really love Two Most Wanted. Levi's Jeans could be a future radio single. We'll see what her team decides to do. I went from thinking, oh, this is going to be a country-ish album concept that'll be like 3 to 6 month album cycle, to now being like, if her team really wanted, they could go 5 or 6 radio singles deep with this record if they really wanted to go there. I don't know if they will, but I think they could. The quality of material is there. And with the amount of country and country influenced songs that have actually been charting at top 40 radio in the US in the past couple of years, like, I think, why not? Texas Hold'em did better, the same or better than both of the Renaissance singles. Two Most Wanted is already shaping up, and she has songs like Bodyguard and Levi's Jeans waiting in the wings to get played across the airwaves. So anyway, this is the part where things get kind of weird and even more interesting on the back third. Flamenco is too short. We're kind of touching on the like Creole influences a little bit here. Then we get more commentary from Linda Martell. Then we get like a Linda Martell, Tina Turner throwback with Ya Ya that I was not expecting, that rolls right into a pitched up Chuck Berry sample with Oh Louisiana. And this part, I'm like enjoying it. I still personally think Ya Ya and Oh Louisiana are like a preview of what's to come with Act 3, because I really think Rock and Roll is going to be Act 3. Because that one I think is a little more well known than house and country, as having black people as the founders of that genre. But still, she can pay tribute to people like Sister Rosetta Tharpe or Chuck Berry and Little Richard, and of course Tina Turner and many others. Big Mama Thornton. Why am I blanking on her name? Ma Rainey. Like, all of those artists from the 40s and 50s who were part of shaping rock and roll and had many of their songs covered by white artists and being more successful crossover records. And that's a story for Act 3. But Ya Ya is a preview of that. And it's held up surprisingly well on streaming, which I was not expecting. I thought that one might be a little bit too out there for people, but it did better than several of the other album tracks after the first week of the album release. So, But then we get to the truly weird part, which is my favorite and not always everyone else's. Maybe I'll have to make a playlist of songs that people think are just weird and kind of off-putting or don't fit onto albums that I love. But the Desert Eagle Riverdance combo, I love. Riverdance especially. Riverdance has been kind of divisive, where some people love it, some people don't like it, and some people just don't know what to do with it. But I just think that bounce on the shit dance part is so catchy. I love the guitars. I love the way that it has like, it doesn't have like a conventional structure. Just like different pieces come in and out and back and forth. And it's just a fun song to me. And Desert Eagle is a fun prelude to that I wish was longer. Like Desert Eagle and Flamenco, I think, almost sound incomplete, and I wish that they were even fuller songs, because I love the production, I love where she's going with the lyrics, and then they just kind of end. And then the last section, it actually gets longer again. So with Riverdance, we're through 23 tracks, and you're like, oh, this has been a journey. And then we have a 5 minute and 40-second song, a 4 minute song, and a 5 minute song to close out the record. And you're just like, wow, but what an ending. Two Hands to Heaven is one. I wasn't sure about it at first because my first couple of listens, because I was coming down off of the Riverdance high, but it's a really well-constructed song. It's catchy, it's vulnerable, it's more subdued, but very interesting. Tyrant, again, brings back Dolly Parton and has her on background vocals. It sounds like Rather Be by Jess Glynn and Clean Bandit, filtered through Lindsey Sterling and married with hip-hop beats while Beyoncé rides on a mechanical bull. Like, that's what Tyrant makes me think of. And then Sweet Honey Buckin' is just its own journey with 3 loose acts with the 3 words in the title within the song itself. That's just really fun. And it's one I've tried to go back to by itself because sometimes I am like running out of stamina by the time I get to the end of this record, but I wanted to give Sweet Honey Buckin' the attention it deserves. And then we land on the conclusion with Amen, which brings back the dramatic chords and vocals of American Requiem, but with some changes. The one that sticks out to me most is she ends the record basically with them old ideas are buried here, to kind of be like, this album made a statement and forced people's eyes onto information that had previously been buried or ignored. And now we are pivoting to the future, where we are trying to learn from and leave behind the things that are not helpful anymore and go forward better together by leaving those old ideas behind. So it's just a brilliant landing point on an artistic triumph of an album. I think it took me 5 listens to like fully process this album and just like sitting with it in silence afterward. So I love it. I'm always amazed at how Beyoncé has continued to just artistically top herself. Because I was like, 4 was the pinnacle. And then she changed the game by releasing a surprise self-titled album, which I didn't love every track on the self-titled. I would say like 2/3 of it. I'd say the back third of that album falls a little flat to me, but it was a bold move with amazing visuals. Then she did Lemonade, which was extremely angry and vulnerable and powerful with a full-on movie. And then she kind of like took a break and did other side projects for a bit. But then when she came back with Renaissance, it was like, how has she done it again? 7 albums into her career, solo career, not even counting Destiny's Child work, she has somehow produced the best thing she has ever produced. And now she has done it again with Cowboy Carter. So I cannot wait for Act 3. I have no idea. I hope it's rock and roll because I think that would just flesh out this idea of reclaiming genres that were started by Black people and then their contributions were swept under the rug by history, and putting spotlights back on those contributions would lend itself, in my mind, to a rock and roll album. But we will see. Who knows? Beyoncé has been very tight-lipped about things, so I'm just happy to enjoy the ride. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about Cowboy Carter? Which are your favorite songs? What do you think about Beyoncé's creative choices? I can't wait to hear it all. And thank you again so much for joining me on this journey through this record here on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to check out divadeepcuts.com for some fun stuff over there and to stay up to date with what's going on with the show. And I will see you next time.